Hello or welcome back. It's a bit rainy today, unfortunately. We've got some grass down, which isn't ideal, which hopefully I'll get a chance to show you. This morning's job is just basically shuffling sheep around, putting in the Suffolk Cross skimmers with the tups. We're splitting them up across a couple of different tups, and then sorting a few batches of sheep out and changing fields. So quite a busy morning, and it'll be just a bit of toing and froing. Some of these are well used to going up here and into the fold yard, and some of these have been in once, some of them maybe 5 times. So we have a real mix in here of sheep and, let's say, keenness to go inside into the shed. So we'll see how we get on. My camera keeps doing this weird thing. I don't know if you just saw there, it goes out of focus and I have to click it to go back into focus. I've got a new phone, so I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. So if you know what I'm doing wrong, let me know. But here we go. I'm not going to film this because I think I need all my concentration on getting the sheep through. Well, that actually went quite without a hitch. Luckily, the ones who've been in here lots of times did help lead the other ones in and settle them as well. Well, last night we managed to bale up this field. We have made hay. It was kind of a bit touch and go in some sense because the dews have been so heavy, but obviously with how baking this week is, we have made hay. We're leading it in off the field so it's not picking up moisture from the field, but we're putting it outside so that it can blow off. I think I might have talked about it before in that when hay or when it's first made, it can still sweat a bit, and so obviously if we stacked it all tightly in a shed, that could overheat and then set on fire. So it's really important at this stage to make sure that we let it blow off outside before we store it inside. You can see my dad there loading the bales on. One problem we did have in this field was how much the grass is growing. So I'll just turn the camera around. You can see how green and actually long the grass is. So this hay has been down, let's say, around a week, and in that time the grass has really grown through. It's been prime conditions, so we had a lot of rain and then the warmth. Now the problem with this is that when we were turning the hay, the grass, and spreading it out after it had been cut, we were actually picking up some of the new fresh bits of grass, mix that in with the heavy dew, and we were worried about getting the bales dry enough. But as I said, with this week of baking weather, we've managed to make hay out of it. Tomorrow I am heading up to Junction 36 Auction Market, if you know where that is. So obviously when this video has gone out, the event will all be over, but it's an event kind of rounding off Love Lamb Week. So with the AHDB and the NSA, National Sheep Association, and the talk that I'm doing on is the role of social media in kind of diversification, but the event as a whole, the day, is talks and a lunch given by people all about how to diversify your business. So it should be a really interesting day. I think often as farmers we complain that organisations that are supposedly supporting us don't do enough. This is a free event and farmers need to get behind these things which the organisations put on. They do a lot behind closed doors and behind the scenes, so we just really need to take advantage of all of the events, whether that's online, in person, the videos that they do, everything like that. As farmers, we really do need to take advantage of them. I'm also tying my visit in with a little trip to Bentham. So they have a 2-day sale of Gimmer lambs, so plenty of sheep going through. I'm definitely not buying anything, but it's a chance to catch up with my sister, a few of the other farmers, and yeah, just have a nosy what's being sold, what prices things are making. And that is a field cleared when my dad just picks up that last bale, so a good job done. We have another morning doing some sheep jobs. We're bringing up in batches all the ewes and tups. The Rador colour changes to red today, so that's the next cycle. That red colour will cover the new Gimmers who are coming into season a bit later, and any ones who may repeat their cycle, so they're not pregnant yet. So yeah, just another bit of shuffling around to do this morning. Here we are with separate batches of sheep in behind me. There's a couple of lame ones to do, I think maybe 3. Important that we do have these separate batches because we're keeping the tups separate. So the ones which haven't been living together, we wouldn't want to put together now at this stage because they may well fight. They can do quite a bit of damage if they do fight. So yeah, very important to keep them separate. We'll have a bit of a sort out the ones which have been tupped, split off the gimmers probably, and do these couple of feet, new raddle colour, and then we'll be ready to turn them back out again. Like most places, we have had a seriously hot week. It's still, well, it's not as hot as it has been today, but I don't know if it could well get out that hot. Now that does slow the tups down working a little bit. We're not worried about it. We've got plenty tupped, the ones who aren't tupped, mainly are the gimmers, as I mentioned, but again, not worried about that at this stage. As you can imagine though, it's such a crucial time of year for us, and if the tups aren't working and the ewes aren't getting tupped, then obviously that will throw us off for our lambing next year if they're not having babies, basically. You'll notice that they are all looking in very, very good condition. Some of them too good condition. We've just got so much grass at the moment. Young ewes who are good doers as well. But you can see the ones with the green heads, these are the gimmers, so the first timers, one over there. So some of those have been tupped, just not all of them. I can actually get a bit of a shot of this ewe's shoulder here. I can't remember if I put this in any of the videos, but I might put a few pictures in for you to have a look at. We saw her in the field with a dirty patch on her neck, wondered if it might have been maggots. But as you can see from these photos, it wasn't maggots at all. It was some kind of puncture wound. The vet wondered, as you can see there, that bottom bit, if it had been a dog bite. But actually, we thought the sheep were too settled to have had a dog in them. What we did was treat with antibiotics, painkiller, and flushing the wound every day. And now, from that video, you can see she's nearly healed up. The wound looks very, very dry, a lot better. And she's now back in with the sheep. We kept her inside for ease of management and to make it quicker, so that when we wanted to flush the wound and give her injections, we didn't have to bring her from a few fields away. But really pleased how that's looking. As with everything like that, we've taken vet's advice. It's so important to make sure that you're definitely giving the right antibiotics and the right course of treatment as well. Well, that's sheep all back out to their respective fields, happily either laying in the shade or grazing. Today I am not strictly on the farm, but definitely still farming related. I have headed up to the Westmoreland show, and alongside the NSA and some other of the farmer members, we are going to be attending a roundtable discussion with Janet Hughes from DEFRA. So a really kind of lucky opportunity to be in front of Janet. From my experience from the meetings I've had with her before, she takes things on board, she listens, and if it's something viable, she really will try and take it back and put it into practice. Obviously, being here alongside the National Sheep Association, there'll definitely be a sheep theme to the questions and thoughts that we're putting to Janet. However, I think there'll also be a few more general ones, particularly related to SFI as well. I asked on my Instagram story if people had any thoughts or questions that they would ask Janet. One thing that was brought up was some kind of an app. The person who responded was talking about livestock movements being on an app. Obviously there's an online service, but as we know, apps are really tailored to phones and being on the go. So I thought that was maybe a good idea. And it's something I've also thought of in terms of SFI and tracking the actions that we're doing. So for example, if you're putting in a herbal lay, you need to have proof that you have actually put that in, and you know, the establishment of the field. What I think would be excellent would be some kind of an app where you can geotag photos. So you go into the field, take the photo, logs the time and the date and the location, and actually there you go, in one step basically you're proof that you've established this herbal ley. For example, it could be, you know, field corners, it could be other wildflower seed mixes, etc. Could be cover crops, but it would make it much easier to log the actions that we're doing. Something else which was brought up was, when it comes to SFI, do the public know what farmers are doing to try and help biodiversity and the environment? And if the public did know, would it get them more on board with British farming? Ultimately a very difficult point, because a lot of consumers choose their food based on price, but there definitely are some who are very concerned about environmental practices, etc. when they're buying their food, and can we capitalise on that? So a few bits of food for thought, and I'm really interested to hear what the other farmers bring today as well. Here in the showground now, and it is an absolutely glorious day. I've never actually been to this show before, so it's always nice to come to a bit of a different place. One thing which I saw on the way in, which I was really impressed by, is the show caterers. There was a sign basically saying they're trying to source local produce, etc., etc. for the catering, which I was really impressed to see that there's kind of an open public pledge to do that. I've just finished the round table with Janet Hughes and other sheep farmers. I guess being up here at Westmoreland, the tone is definitely more favoured towards upland farming, hill farming and those sort of breeds. However, still some really good discussions in general when it comes to SFI. A couple of things I brought up, talking about the farmed landscape, and sheep in hills is something which is a real selling point for exports and people from other countries. They love to see how at one with nature our livestock is, and yeah, it's a real selling point. The other thing I brought up was succession, and how that's going to be a real struggle, and already is proving to be a struggle for our industry. I brought up the free farm business advice visits that you can get under the new payment schemes, and we kind of had the discussion basically that any advisor should be bringing up succession in those farm business advice meetings. They are free. I think there's been over 15,000 farmers take those on, so it seemed to be absolutely worth it. And then the final thing that I brought up was, can we have some kind of an app to be recording our activities? Apparently an app is in progress to be able to record them, so fingers crossed that'll be out soon, and hopefully that definitely works and it just makes that recording that bit easier. Unfortunately, I have to get back to the farm, so I haven't got time to show you properly around the show. From what I've seen though, it looks fantastic show. It's a 2-day show, and a good show of stock, particularly on the sheep side as well. I've also just heard a really interesting bit of commentary in the sheep ring, so talking about how many households in the UK are buying meat, but also illustrating what happens with wool. So when sheep are clipped, it's all about their welfare. But what the commentator has also just mentioned is that farmers make a financial loss when they're clipping their sheep, so the only motivation behind removing the fleeces is animal welfare. So it's so great that that sort of message is being pushed and talked about on a public platform like this. So that's it for my video this week. Thank you as always for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe to my channel.